This year, one of my big goals is to understand addiction on a deeper level because I had a really close friend who passed away in a struggle with addiction, and I'm trying to put his experience in context and also put some information out there that could be helpful to other people in a similar situation who are seeing people they care about struggle. Or perhaps you yourself are struggling with it. And my goal here is to first provide information so we can understand the issue on a deeper level, and then also to see if there's any room for novel solutions. And we'll find out if there is. So the first book I read for my research is In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts by Gabor Maté. And I think what really struck me about this book is understanding how deeply addiction is tied to adverse circumstances like early in people's lives and negative environment currently. So it's like people who have suffered from abuse, neglect, severe poverty, homelessness in their youth are many, many times, up to 10 times more likely to struggle with addiction. And, this exists on a spectrum. So the person who is struggling with addiction might not have some very overt or intense story of abuse, though they might. They might have something more subtle. Perhaps their parents were emotionally unavailable. Perhaps they didn't get the type of attention they needed. I mean, some of the effects that I was reading about are very, very subtle. Like, it can be things like your parents didn't make enough eye contact with you, and therefore your endogenous opioid system, your attachment reward system, is permanently disrupted, such that when you take an opiate, it feels like a thirsty person getting a glass of water. And for someone who has a healthy attachment reward system, it doesn't feel that way. So that was one major strain of investigation that I really hadn't taken up before, is just the extent to which this is the case. And another thing that was pretty fascinating and really sad in a sense, but also hopeful in another sense, is we've all heard those experiments where a rat self-administers cocaine or heroin, and it'll do so to the point of death. Like, it'll forego food for cocaine or heroin. But there was a psychological researcher called Dr. Bruce Alexander who created an environment for rats which was beautiful. It was like painted with woodland scenes. It was stimulating. It was a lot of toys. It was social. There was, dozens of male and female rats, like, all in the cage together. It had adequate shelter, good food, and the path to get the cocaine was a short passage, but only one rat could fit through. And in this environment, the rate of addiction was essentially zero. So wrap your head around that. Where the rates of addiction for people, in the average rehab program are 70 to 90%. Bruce Alexander, and for the rats, they self-administer cocaine literally till they die. But he was able to create an environment where that wasn't the case. So that really points to an avenue for developing solutions. Namely, what are the components? Rigorously, what are the components of a healthy human environment, and how can we make those accessible to everyone, And while we can definitely wait for policy interventions that work and address these things, we can also think about it ourselves. How can we solve this problem ourselves, So it's just food for thought for you guys to, mull over what makes a positive human environment, and how can we help people establish those foundational pieces that fortify them against the ravages of addiction. So that was one line of investigation. And then another thing that I found really interesting is just how severe of a problem addiction is. So, prior to this, I think I appreciated, to some extent, how much of a demon addiction was, and how much it disrupted and destroyed the lives of people. But it seemed more easily surmountable to me before I read this book. It seemed like, if the person was able to just take some positive steps and get some things in place, maybe they could easily pull themselves out. But your environment is very hard to change. It's your sense of structure, it's your sense of support, your sense of meaning, your friends. It's really hard to unplug from the environment that's fueling your addiction. And to me, someone who's severely addicted has the equivalent of like a cancer diagnosis. It's not easy or trivial or even consistently surmountable to cure people of this, it seems. I mean, Gabor Mate's perspective is almost the perspective of palliative care while trying to reduce harm, which actually has really great benefits. Dramatically reduces rates of crime, rates of death and mortality and morbidity. But he's not idealistic about solving the problem for everyone, because it's such a severe, deep problem to solve. So overall, I think, if you want to get a really clear picture of the human side of addiction, if you want to understand the basic neurobiology of addiction, and how it warps and distorts the incentive attachment and motivation systems of the brain, if you want to see some silver linings, if you want to see some potential avenues for addressing the problem, then Gabor Mate's book, In the Realm of Hungry Ghosts, I highly recommend it. I'm going to keep reading, and I'm going to try to, understand the problem better, understand what solutions have been employed. I'm about to start doing some volunteering at a rehab clinic, and I'm going to try to use that to put my reading in context. But I'm hopeful that at the minimum we can understand this problem more deeply than we do, that we can be more compassionate and non-judgmental towards people who are suffering from this problem, and in the best case, maybe we can find some novel solutions or some places where there are gaps that can be filled. And again, if government policy helps us fix this problem, then all the better. But I think we might be able to do it ourselves. I think we might be able to map out different aspects of this problem. And I think specifically who we could help is people who have made the decision to change and are lacking the resources and are lacking information and are lacking context and social support. That is the group of people who I think we can really impact. And the reason why I say that is because one of the things that I often think about with my friend is maybe we should have just been tougher. Like maybe we should have just hauled his ass into a car, driven him to a rehab, and checked him in. But one of the things that I see in Gabor Mate's book is that taking a gentle approach is twice as effective as trying to take a tough love approach with people. And even then, it's only a 50% success rate of even getting them into treatment. So I just think that, combined with this concept called counter will resistance, which I'm sure you all have experienced, where someone wants you to do something. They think that something is going to be good for you, and they want you to do it, and you instinctively, proportionally resist them. So we can only really help people who've decided that this is a problem, and this is a problem they want to tackle. This is a mountain they want to climb, because it is a mountain. Before those people, maybe there are some things we can do to make their path a little easier. So with that, that kind of kicks off this project for me, and I hope you found some value in this, and I hope you find some value in the book. And yeah, thank you for watching this video. You can subscribe if you want to keep up with different things that I learn about this topic.